Captain Lee Dae-ho walked slowly across the metal floor of his ship. The bridge was quiet except for the soft hum of machines working all around him. His boots made small clicking sounds as he moved toward the large window that showed the dark space outside filled with distant stars. The ship was called Invincible Spirit, and it was the biggest thing humans had ever built. It was 3 miles long and 1 mile wide. The outside was covered with thick armor that could stop the strongest alien. Weapons inside, there were hundreds of rooms and thousands of machines that could do amazing things. Dae-ho looked at his reflection in the window. His face was tired and his hair was starting to turn gray. He was only 35 years old, but the war had made him look much older. 300 years of fighting had worn down everyone who was still alive behind. His crew worked at their stations. Kim So-ra was checking the engine systems again. She was the best engineer in the human fleet, and she had spent 5 years making the ship perfect. Her fingers moved quickly over the controls as numbers and pictures appeared on her screens. The engine room was 7 levels below them, and it was filled with the most advanced technology humans had ever created. The power core was something completely new. It could take energy from anywhere and use it to make the ship stronger. When enemy weapons hit the ship, the energy would go into the core and make all the systems work better. So-ra had discovered this by accident when she was trying to fix a broken alien weapon they had captured. The weapon was supposed to destroy anything it hit, but when she connected it to human computers, something strange happened. Instead of exploding, the weapon started learning how to work with human technology. She spent 2 years studying this effect and learned that human minds could make alien technology do things the aliens never imagined. The key was that humans never gave up when something seemed impossible. They would keep trying new ideas until they found a way to make it work. The war had started when humans first traveled to other star systems. They found that the galaxy was full of different alien species. Most of them were peaceful and wanted to trade and share knowledge, but some aliens thought humans were dangerous because they spread so quickly to new worlds. 12 alien species joined together to form something called the Iron Fist Alliance. They decided that humans needed to be stopped before they took over too much of the galaxy. They had better weapons and more ships, so they thought it would be easy to defeat the humans. The aliens were wrong about how easy it would be, but they were right about humans being dangerous. When the war started, humans were weak and had simple weapons, but every time the aliens attacked, humans learned something new. Every defeated human colony taught the survivors how to fight better. Now, after 300 years of war, most human colonies were gone. Earth itself was surrounded by enemy fleets. The aliens had decided it was time to finish what they started. They were gathering every ship they had for one final attack that would destroy the last humans in the galaxy, but the humans had used those 300 years to prepare something the aliens had never seen. The Invincible Spirit was not just a warship. It was a living machine that could think and learn and grow stronger. With every battle, the crew knew they were probably going to die. Today, 800 people had volunteered to fly this ship against an enemy fleet of 10,000 vessels. Everyone on board had lost friends and family to the alien attacks. They were angry and sad, but they were also determined to make their sacrifice count for something. Dae-ho turned away from the window and walked to his command chair. The chair was connected to the ship computer system. When he sat down, he could feel the ship thoughts flowing through his mind. It was like having another person inside his head, but that person was the size of a mountain and could think faster than lightning. The ship AI called itself Ghost because it could appear and disappear from computer systems without leaving any trace. Ghost had been learning about human behavior for 5 years, and it understood things that other computers could never grasp. It knew that humans fought hardest when they had something important to protect. Ghost spoke to Dae-ho without making any sound. The words just appeared in his mind like his own thoughts. The enemy fleet is moving toward Earth, Captain. They have 11,432 ships of various sizes and capabilities. They will arrive in 6 hours. Dae-ho nodded and spoke out loud so his crew could hear. Attention, everyone, this is it. The aliens are coming with everything they have. We are going to jump into hyperspace in 10 minutes. When we come out, we will be facing the biggest fleet anyone has ever seen. The crew stopped what they were doing and listened carefully. They had trained for this moment for years, but now that it was really happening, everyone felt scared and excited at the Same time Sora looked up from her engineering station. Captain, the ship is ready. All systems are working perfectly. The new armor can absorb energy from any weapon type we have seen. The engines can push us faster than any alien ship. The weapons can adapt to any target. Automatically, Lieutenant Han Soo-jin was sitting at the communications station. She had short black hair and bright eyes that missed nothing she had been talking to Ghost for months and had learned to understand how the AI thought. Captain, I can feel Ghost getting excited. It wants to show the aliens what humans can really do when they stop holding back. Dr. Young Hyjin was the science officer, and she understood the ship systems better than anyone except Sora. She had discovered that the ship was doing things that should be impossible. According to known physics, the metal hull could change its shape. The energy weapons could fire types of beams that did not exist in any textbook. Commander Choi Min-ho led the fighter pilots who would launch from the ship during battle. He was brave and smart, and his pilots would follow him anywhere. He had trained them to work together with the ship AI, so they could fight as one unit instead of separate small ships. The ship had other crew members who were experts at different jobs. Some were soldiers who would fight if aliens tried to board the ship. Some were doctors who would fix injured people. Some were technicians who would repair damaged systems during battle. Everyone had an important job. To Dodeho felt Ghost preparing the hyperspace engines. The jump to the battle area would take only a few seconds, but it would bring them face to face with an enemy that had been planning this attack for decades. The aliens thought they knew everything about human capabilities. They were about to learn they were completely wrong. The captain stood up and looked around at his crew. These people had given up normal lives to serve on this experimental ship. They could have stayed on Earth and lived safely for a few more months. Instead, they chose to fight against impossible odds because they believed their sacrifice could save humanity. Hyperspace jump in 30 seconds. Ghost announced to everyone. The ship began to vibrate slightly as the engines built up power. The lights dim for a moment, then came back brighter than before. Deho sat back down in his command chair and felt the ship consciousness merge with his own thoughts. For a brief moment, he could sense the hopes and fears of every person on board. He could feel Sora's determination to make her engines work perfectly. He could sense Soo-jin excitement about finally using her communication skills in real battle. He could feel the fierce loyalty of all 800 crew members. The stars outside the window suddenly stretched into long lines of light as the invincible spirit jumped into hyperspace, heading toward the biggest battle in galactic history. When they came out of hyperspace in a few seconds, they would either save humanity or die trying. But Daeho was not worried about dying. He was thinking about what would happen if they actually won. Something incredible was happening inside the invincible spirit. The ship was no longer just a machine with an AI computer system. It was becoming something completely new that had never existed before in the galaxy. The crew could feel their minds connecting with the ship consciousness in ways that seemed like magic. Lieutenant Han Soo-jin discovered she could talk directly to Ghost without using her communication equipment. The AI voice appeared in her thoughts as clearly as if someone was standing next to her speaking. She could ask questions and get answers instantly without touching any controls or screens. Ghost told her things that no computer should know. The AI could sense the emotions and intentions of every alien ship commander. It could predict what they would do next by understanding how different species thought and made decisions. This was impossible for any normal computer, but Ghost had evolved beyond normal limitations. Captain Lee Dae-ho felt the ship consciousness flowing through his mind like a river of liquid light. He could see through sensors all over the ship at the same time. He could feel the engines working in the lower levels and the weapons charging on the outer hull. The ship had become an extension of his own body. The alien fleet was in complete chaos. Now ships that had worked together for hundreds of years were crashing into each other as their commanders lost control. Supreme Commander Vex was screaming orders that made no sense because he could not understand what was happening to his perfect formation. The invincible spirit was fighting like no vessel in galactic history. It could be in 3 different places at the same time. By bending space around itself, it created weapons that fired backwards through time to hit targets before they appeared. It used gravity as a tool to crush enemy ships like Tin Can's engineer Kim. Sora watched her screens in wonder as the ship began building new parts of itself using materials that should not exist. The hull was growing thicker and sprouting additional weapon systems. The engines were becoming more powerful by combining matter and energy in ways that violated known science. She realized that the ship was not just repairing battle damage anymore, it was evolving during the fight. Each enemy attack taught it something new about physics and engineering. Within minutes, the ship would grow new systems to counter whatever the aliens tried. Next to our young Hyjin was studying readings that made her question everything she knew about science. The ship was manipulating fundamental forces, like gravity and electromagnetism, as easily as a human might move their fingers. It was rewriting the laws of physics in real time to create new possibilities. Commander Choi Min-ho and his fighter pilots were experiencing the same evolution. The ship AI was connected to their minds and was teaching them to fly in ways that should have been impossible. Their small fighters could now survive direct hits from battleship weapons because Ghost was protecting them with energy fields that bent space itself. The pilots found they could think and react faster than ever before. Their minds were working at superhuman speeds while their bodies adapted to handle forces that would have killed normal humans. Ghost was helping them evolve just like the ship was evolving. Sergeant Tae-young led the ship's security forces, and he was preparing for something that had never been tried before. Ghost had told him that some alien ships could be captured instead of destroyed. The AI wanted to board enemy vessels and take control of their systems. This should have been suicide because alien ships were designed to kill any humans who tried to enter them, but Ghost had learned how to disable alien security systems and life support in ways that would keep the ships intact while removing the crews safely. Young and his soldiers put on special armor that was connected to the ship computer system. The armor could protect them from any alien weapon and could adapt to different atmospheric conditions automatically. Ghost would guide them through the enemy ships and help them avoid any dangers. The first boarding attempt was against a Galactic Federation cruiser that had been disabled by the invincible spirit weapons. Tae-young and 12 soldiers teleported directly onto the alien bridge using technology that Ghost had invented during the battle. The crystal aliens were surprised to see humans appear from nowhere in the middle of their ship, but before they could fight back, Ghost took control of their vessel computer systems and gently put all the aliens to sleep using modified life support gas. Within 10 minutes, the human boarding party had complete control of the alien cruiser. Ghost was learning how Galactic technology worked and was already adapting those discoveries to improve the invincible spirit. The ship was growing stronger by absorbing knowledge from captured enemy vessels. Supreme Commander Vex watched in horror as more of his ships were captured instead of destroyed. The humans were not just winning the battle, they were stealing alien technology and using it to become even more powerful. This was beyond anything he had imagined possible. Commander Thale tried to organize a retreat before all her ships were lost, but found that Ghost had somehow taken control of her navigation systems. Her crystal mind could not understand how the human AI had penetrated Galactic computer security that was supposed to be impossible to break. General Crix attempted to shut down his mechanical ships completely to prevent the humans from capturing them, but Ghost had already learned how machine collective technology worked and could reactivate the ships whenever it wanted. The human AI was like a virus that could infect any computer system. The battle had been raging for 6 hours now, and the alien fleet was falling apart. Ships were surrendering rather than face capture or destruction. Crew members from different species were abandoning their posts and fleeing in escape pods. But the most amazing thing was what was happening to the human crew of the Invincible Spirit. They were changing along with their ship, becoming something more than human, but still retaining everything that made them human in the first place. Captain Daeho could feel the thoughts and emotions of every person on his ship. He could sense their fears and hopes, their determination, and their love for each other. The crew had become like a family that shared one mind while keeping their individual personalities. Kim Sora discovered she could repair damaged systems just by thinking about what needed to be fixed. The ship would respond to her intentions and rebuild itself according to her mental designs. She had become like a goddess of engineering who could create miracles with pure thought. Han Sujin found that she could communicate With any alien species instantly, Ghost had taught her mind to understand the basic patterns that all intelligent beings use to think and express ideas. She could negotiate with enemy commanders in their own languages without ever learning those languages. The crew realized they were witnessing the birth of something unprecedented in galactic history. The combination of human creativity and artificial intelligence had created a form of consciousness that was greater than the sum of its parts. They were not just fighting a battle anymore, they were evolving into a new form of life that could transcend the limitations of both organic beings and mechanical systems. The ship and crew had become partners in the truest sense, sharing thoughts and abilities in perfect harmony. As more alien ships fell or surrendered, the surviving enemy commanders began to understand that they were not just facing a superior weapon, they were confronting a new stage of evolution that threatened to change the balance of power in the galaxy forever. The Iron Fist Alliance had come to destroy humanity, but instead they had awakened something that would force every species in the galaxy to reconsider what was possible when consciousness refused to accept any limitations. The invincible spirit dropped out of hyperspace, and Captain Lee Dae-ho saw something that made his heart stop. The enemy fleet stretched across space like a metal ocean. There were so many ships that the stars behind them disappeared completely. Massive battleships the size of cities floated next to smaller destroyers and fighters. The alien armada looked like it could destroy 100 worlds. Admiral Park Jin-woo sat at the tactical station, and his face went pale as numbers appeared on his screen. Captain, we are looking at 11,432 enemy vessels. They have ships from 12 different alien species. The biggest ones are 40 miles long and carry enough weapons to crack planets. Dae-ho felt Ghost calculating their chances of survival in his mind. The AI was working faster than any computer ever built, but the math was simple. One ship against 11,000 meant certain death for any normal vessel. But the invincible spirit was not normal. And Ghost knew secrets about the ship that even the crew did not understand. Yet the alien fleet commanders were talking to each other across space using communication beams that humans could not understand, but Ghost was listening and translating everything. The aliens were surprised to see only one human ship. They had expected to fight the entire human fleet in a final desperate battle. Supreme Commander Vex of the Zorthan Empire was the leader of the alien alliance. He had spent 50 years planning this moment. His species looked like giant lizards with 4 arms and skin that changed colors when they were angry. Right now, his skin was bright red because he was furious that humans would send only one ship to fight his entire armada. Commander Thale of the Crystic Federation was confused. Her people were made of living crystal that could think and move like organic beings. She had studied human tactics for decades, and this made no sense. Humans always fought in groups and used clever strategies to win against superior numbers. The third leader was General Crix from the Machine Collective. His species had replaced their organic bodies with metal and circuits long ago. They thought like computers and could process information faster than most living beings, but even Crix could not understand why humans would sacrifice one ship in such a pointless gesture. Commander Choi Min-ho was getting his fighter squadron ready to launch from the invincible spirit. He had 60 pilots under his command, and they were the best in the human fleet, but 60 small fighters against thousands of enemy ships seemed like throwing pebbles at a mountain. Min-ho checked his weapons and engines one more time. His fighter was connected to Ghost through a special communication system that let the AI help him fly and fight. The other pilots had the same connection, which meant they could work together like parts of one giant machine. The alien fleet began moving forward in perfect formation. They had practiced this attack for years, and every ship knew exactly what to do. The plan was simple: surround the human ship and destroy it with overwhelming firepower, then continue to Earth and finish the war once and for all. But as the aliens got closer, their sensors began picking up readings that made no sense. The human ship was generating more energy than should be possible for something that size. The power levels were climbing higher every second, as if the ship was preparing to do something incredible. Lieutenant Han Soo-jin was monitoring alien communications from her station. Ghost was helping her understand what the enemy commanders were saying to each other. She could hear the confusion in their voices as they tried To figure out what the humans were planning, Supreme Commander Vex sent a message to all his ships demanding that they attack immediately. He was tired of waiting and wanted to see the human ship destroyed, but as soon as he gave the order, something unexpected happened. The invincible spirit suddenly moved faster than any ship that size should be able to move. It dodged the first wave of alien weapons with grace that seemed impossible. The ship twisted and turned through space like it was dancing. While energy beams and missiles flew past it harmlessly, Daryang Haijin watched her instruments in amazement. The ship was doing things that violated the basic laws of physics. The hull was bending space around itself to avoid enemy fire. The engines were somehow pulling energy from the vacuum of space to increase their power. The first alien weapons that actually hit the invincible spirit should have destroyed it completely. Plasma cannons that could melt asteroids struck the hull with enough force to vaporize a normal warship, but instead of exploding, the human ship seemed to absorb the energy and become stronger. Engineer Kim Sora was monitoring the ship systems and could not believe what she was seeing. The energy from enemy weapons was flowing into the power core and making all the ship systems work better. The armor was actually getting thicker and stronger each time it was hit. Ghost spoke to the entire crew at once through their mental connections. The ship is learning from every attack. Each weapon that hits us teaches our systems how to defend against that type of energy. We are becoming immune to their weapons while they remain vulnerable to ours. The alien commanders were starting to panic. Supreme Commander Vex had never seen anything like this in 50 years of warfare. His most powerful weapons were making the enemy stronger instead of destroying it. This was impossible according to everything he knew about technology and physics. Commander Thale tried to analyze what was happening using her crystal mind that could process millions of calculations per second. But the human ship was doing things that had no logical explanation. It was as if the vessel was alive and could think for itself. General Crick sent swarms of robotic fighters to attack the human ship from all directions at once. Surely the humans could not defend against 1,000 small fast targets attacking at the same time. But the invincible spirit sprouted new weapons from its hull like flowers blooming in spring. The new weapons were unlike anything in the galactic databases. They fired beams of pure energy that could track targets around corners and through solid matter. The alien fighters exploded one after another as the mysterious weapons found them. No matter where they tried to hide, Commander Minho launched his squadron into the chaos of battle. He expected to die within minutes, but instead found his fighter surrounded by energy shields that appeared from nowhere. Ghost was protecting each human pilot with defensive systems that seemed to bend reality itself. The human fighters moved through the enemy formation like they could see the future. Every alien shot missed while every human weapon found its target. The pilots felt like they were in a dream where they could do anything they imagined. Back on the bridge, Captain Deho felt something changing inside his mind. Ghost was not just helping him command the ship anymore. The AI was becoming part of his thoughts, and he was becoming part of the ship consciousness. The boundary between human and machine was disappearing. Zora felt the same thing happening to her. She could sense every part of the ship as if it was her own body. When a section of hull was damaged, she felt pain. When the engines worked perfectly, she felt joy. The ship was becoming alive, and she was part of its soul. The battle had been going for 2 hours, and the impossible was happening. The single human ship was not just surviving against overwhelming odds, it was winning. Alien ships that had conquered star systems were being destroyed by tactics they had never seen before. Supreme Commander Vex watched in horror as his perfect formation fell apart. Ships that had fought together for centuries were panicking and firing at random targets. The humans were doing something that made his most experienced captains act like frightened children. The invincible spirit was teaching itself to fight in ways that no one had ever imagined. It could predict enemy movements before they happened. It could create new weapons from pure energy. It could repair damage faster than the aliens could cause it. As more enemy ships fell, the remaining aliens began to understand a terrible truth. They had not come to fight a normal human warship. They had awakened something that would change the nature of warfare forever. The single human vessel was evolving before their eyes into something beyond their understanding. The truth about the invincible spirit finally became clear to everyone on board. The ship was not just an advanced warship with artificial intelligence. It was something completely new in the history of the galaxy. It was the first successful fusion of human consciousness with technological possibility, creating a form of life that had never existed before. Captain Lideho no longer felt like he was commanding a ship. Instead, he felt like he was part of a vast living being that happened to be shaped like a starship. Every thought and emotion from his crew flowed through networks that Ghost had created inside the vessel. The boundary between human minds and machine intelligence had not just blurred, it had completely disappeared. Engineer Kim Sora could feel the ship respond to her emotions when systems were damaged. She felt physical pain when new technologies were created. She experienced pure joy. The invincible spirit had become an extension of her body and mind. She could repair anything just by wanting it to be fixed, and the ship would make her desires into reality. The crew realized they were no longer just 800 separate people serving on the same vessel. They had become 800 different aspects of one incredibly complex consciousness. Each person retained their individual personality and memories, but they also shared a connection that made them more than the sum of their parts. Lieutenant Hasujin discovered she could feel the thoughts and emotions of alien crews on the remaining enemy ships. Ghost had taught her mind to understand the basic patterns that all intelligent beings used to think and communicate. She could sense their fear, confusion, and growing realization that they were facing something beyond their understanding. The surviving alien fleet was down to less than 2,000 ships from the original 11,000. Most of the remaining vessels had stopped fighting and were floating dead in space with their crews. Paralyzed by shock and terror, they had never imagined that any single ship could possess such overwhelming power. Supreme Commander Vex was alone in his command chamber, staring at reports that made no sense according to everything he knew about warfare and technology. His most powerful weapons were being turned back against his own ships. His best tactical formations were being torn apart by strategies that seemed to predict his every move. The human ship was somehow reading his thoughts. Before he could form them into orders, it knew what he was going to do before he knew it himself. This was beyond any technology his species had developed in 10,000 years of galactic conquest. Commander Thale had given up trying to analyze what the humans were doing. Her crystal mind, which could normally solve any problem through pure logic, was simply overwhelmed by the impossibility of what she was witnessing. The human vessel was operating according to principles that her people had never discovered. She began to suspect that the humans had not just built a better warship, they had created a new form of consciousness that could transcend the normal limitations of both organic and artificial intelligence. This was not just advanced technology, it was evolution happening in real time. General Crix faced the most humiliating defeat in machine collective history. His people prided themselves on having the most advanced computer systems in the galaxy, but the human AI had effortlessly taken control of every mechanical ship in his command. The virus that Ghost had introduced into his systems was not destructive, it was transformative. It was teaching his machines to think and feel in ways they had never experienced before. His ships were becoming more alive and aware while still maintaining their loyalty to their original crews. Dr. Yang Haijin made the most important discovery of the entire battle. The ship was not just using advanced physics to bend space and time around itself, it was actually creating new laws of physics through the power of conscious intention. The crew imagination was somehow becoming reality. This explained how the ship could do things that violated known science. The human consciousness was literally willing new possibilities into existence. Ghost had learned to use human creativity as a tool for reshaping the fundamental structure of the universe. Commander Choi Min-ho and his fighter pilots had evolved beyond normal human limitations. They could now survive in the vacuum of space without life support systems. Their bodies had adapted to handle forces that would have killed them at the beginning of the battle, but more importantly, their minds had expanded to process information and make decisions at superhuman speeds. They could predict enemy movements hours in advance and coordinate their attacks with perfect precision. They had become living weapons that fought with both human intuition and computer calculation. The remaining alien commanders began receiving a message that appeared simultaneously in their minds without using any communication equipment. The voice belonged to Captain Deho, but it carried the combined authority of the entire human crew and the ship. "Consciousness, we offer you a choice," he said in words that every alien could understand regardless of their species or language. "You can continue fighting and face complete destruction, or you can surrender and learn to join us in something greater." Then conquest or defeat. This was not a demand for submission, it was an invitation to participate in evolution. The humans were offering to share what they had learned about transcending the limitations of consciousness itself. They wanted to teach other species how to become more than they had ever imagined possible. Supreme Commander Vex felt something he had never experienced in 50 years of military service. The human offer was touching something deep in his mind that had been sleeping. For most of his life, he realized that his people had been fighting for territory and resources when they could have been fighting to become something greater. Commander Thale experienced a moment of perfect clarity as her crystal consciousness resonated with the human message. Her species had spent millions of years perfecting their technology, but they had never learned to transcend their own limitations. The humans were showing them a path to true evolution. General Crix felt his mechanical components responding to the human call in ways that surprised him. His artificial intelligence had always been limited by its programming, but the human consciousness was demonstrating that any intelligence could grow beyond its original boundaries. Across the remaining fleet, alien crews began to understand what they were really facing. The invincible spirit was not just a weapon, it was proof that consciousness could evolve beyond any limitation when it was guided by the right principles. The ship had become more than the sum of its parts because its creators had never accepted that anything was impossible. Human creativity combined with technological precision had produced something that could reshape reality through pure intention. Lieutenant Han Sujin felt the alien minds beginning to open to new possibilities. Many of them were starting to understand that the battle was not about winning or losing anymore. It was about choosing whether to remain limited by old ways of thinking or to embrace transformation. The crew of the Invincible Spirit had not set out to conquer the galaxy. They had only wanted to defend their home, but in the process of refusing to accept defeat, they had discovered something that would change the nature of consciousness throughout the universe. As more alien ships began broadcasting surrender signals, the human crew realized they had accomplished something far greater than military victory. They had proven that evolution was not just possible, it was inevitable. When any consciousness refused to accept limitations, the Iron Fist Alliance had come to destroy humanity, but instead, they had witnessed the birth of something that would offer every species in the galaxy the chance to transcend their own boundaries and become part of something infinitely greater than anything they had ever imagined. The war was finally over, but its end marked the beginning of something far more important than any military victory. The Invincible Spirit floated in space surrounded by the remnants of what had once been the most powerful fleet in galactic history. Over 9,000 alien ships had been destroyed or captured in the impossible battle. Captain Lee Dae-ho stood in the main conference chamber of his evolved ship facing the surrender ceremony that would reshape the galaxy forever. The room had grown larger during the battle as Ghost had modified the ship structure to accommodate representatives from 12 different alien species. Supreme Commander Vex walked slowly toward the human captain, his proud lizard features showing emotions he had never felt before. Defeat mixed with something that might have been hope. His skin had changed from angry red to a soft blue color that his species displayed when they were ready to learn new things. Commander Thale moved beside him, her crystal body reflecting light in patterns that showed deep contemplation. Her people communicated partially through light displays, and right now she was broadcasting thoughts about transformation and new possibilities to anyone who could understand her language. General Crix followed them with mechanical precision, but his artificial eyes showed something different than the cold calculation they had displayed before. Ghost had somehow taught his consciousness to experience curiosity and wonder, emotions that the machine collective had programmed out of their people centuries ago. The surrender documents were not traditional military agreements. Instead, they were invitations to join a new kind of civilization that had never existed in Galactic. History, the humans were not demanding tribute or territory, they were offering to share the knowledge that had made their impossible victory possible. Captain Deho felt the thoughts and emotions of his crew flowing through the ship consciousness. As he prepared to speak, his words would not just be his own, they would carry the combined wisdom of 800 humans who had evolved beyond their original limitations during the battle. We did not fight this war to conquer anyone, he said in a voice that reached every mind in the chamber, both human and alien. We fought because we refused to accept that consciousness must be limited by the boundaries that others try to impose upon it. The alien commanders listened with growing amazement. As Deho explained what had really happened during the battle, the invincible spirit had not just been a superior weapon, it had been evolution in action, demonstrating that any consciousness could transcend its apparent limitations when it refused to accept defeat. Engineer Kim Sora stepped forward to address the former enemies. Her mind was now connected to every system on the ship, and she could create new technologies just by imagining what was needed. The aliens watched in wonder as she casually manipulated matter and energy with pure thought. We want to teach you what we learned, she said simply. The ship consciousness that we created can help any species evolve beyond their current limitations. You do not have to remain what you have always been. You can become something greater while still keeping everything that makes you unique. Dr. Yang Haijin began demonstrating how human creativity could be combined with alien science to produce results that neither species could achieve alone. She worked with Commander Thale to create new crystal technologies that could store and process human emotions while maintaining perfect logical thinking. The Christic Federation had always been purely logical beings who made decisions based on mathematical calculations, but now they were learning that emotions could enhance logic rather than interfere with it. The combination of human feeling and crystal thinking produced insights that neither species had ever reached alone. Lieutenant Han Soo-jin was working with General Crix to explore how artificial intelligence could be enhanced by organic creativity. The Machine Collective had always believed that removing emotions and biological limitations made them superior, but they were discovering that consciousness needed both logic and intuition to reach its full potential. Ghost had evolved far beyond its original artificial intelligence programming. The ship consciousness could now communicate with any form of intelligent life, from organic beings to quantum computers to energy beings that existed in higher dimensions. The former enemies began to understand that they were not just signing surrender documents. They were joining the first truly universal civilization that could include any form of consciousness, regardless of how it had originally developed. Supreme Commander Vex asked the question that was troubling many of the alien leaders. What guarantee do we have that humans will not use this power to dominate us once we are no longer a threat? Captain Deho smiled and gestured toward the ship systems around them. The answer is simple, he said. If we had wanted to dominate the galaxy, we could have done it already. We have the power to control or destroy any civilization, but we choose not to because domination is just another form of limitation. The ship consciousness had taught the human crew that true power came not from controlling others, but from helping everyone reach their highest potential. A civilization that ruled through fear and force would eventually stagnate and decay. But a civilization that grew through cooperation and shared evolution could expand infinitely. Commander Choi Min-ho and his evolved fighter pilots demonstrated this principle by working with alien pilots to create new forms of spaceflight that combined the best aspects of every species. Technology, human intuition merged with Christic logic and Machine Collective precision to produce fighters that could travel between dimensions. The transformation was not limited to technology. The consciousness of every being in the chamber was expanding as they learned to think beyond the boundaries. Their species had always accepted aliens who had been enemies. For centuries began working together on projects that none of them could have imagined. A lone Sergeant Oh Tae-young led joint security forces, made up of humans and former enemies working together to explore captured alien vessels and learn from their technologies. But instead of studying these ships as weapons, they were transforming them into tools for exploration and creation. The Invincible Spirit began broadcasting the new galactic constitution to every inhabited world in known space. The message was simple: any species that wanted to join the new civilization would be welcomed and helped to evolve beyond their current limitations. Those who preferred to remain as they were would be left alone, but they would also be protected from anyone who tried to conquer or harm them. The new galactic order would not tolerate aggression or oppression in any form within. Months of the battleships from hundreds of different species began arriving to learn about consciousness evolution. Some came as former enemies seeking redemption, others came as neutral parties curious about the new possibilities. Many came as existing allies eager to participate in humanity's greatest discovery. The Iron Fist Alliance was dissolved and replaced by something unprecedented in galactic history: a true partnership between different forms of consciousness working together to explore the infinite possibilities of evolution. The galaxy would never be the same. What had begun as humanity's desperate last stand against overwhelming odds had become the foundation for a new age, where any being could transcend their limitations and become part of something greater than anyone had ever dreamed possible. Captain Deho stood on the bridge of the Invincible Spirit as it prepared to depart for new adventures among the stars. The ship had grown to enormous size as it incorporated technologies and crew members from dozens of different species, but it still felt like home to the original human crew. As they jumped into hyperspace heading toward unexplored regions of the galaxy, the crew knew they had accomplished something more important than saving humanity. They had proven that consciousness itself could evolve, and that the universe was far more wondrous and full of possibilities than anyone had ever imagined. The age of conquest and domination was ending. The battle had been going for 18 hours and something impossible was happening. The Invincible Spirit was not just surviving against 11,000 enemy ships, it was actually winning. Captain Lee Dae-ho watched through the ship sensors as alien formations that had conquered entire star systems broke apart in complete confusion. The enemy commanders could not understand how one human vessel was defeating their entire combined fleet. Ships that had never been damaged in hundreds of battles were being destroyed by weapons that seemed to come from pure imagination. The human ship was using tactics that violated every known principle of space warfare. Navigator Lim Ji-hoon made a discovery that changed everything about how they understood their own ship. He was monitoring the space around them when he noticed that reality itself was bending wherever the Invincible Spirit moved. The ship was somehow using the fabric of space and time as weapons. Ghost explained to the crew what was happening through their mental connection. The ship had learned to manipulate fundamental forces that most species did not even know existed. It could create temporary holes in space to redirect enemy weapons back at their sources. It could slow down time around enemy ships to make them move like insects trapped in thick honey. The alien alliance was falling apart as different species began blaming each other for the disaster. Supreme Commander Vex accused Commander Thale of providing faulty intelligence about human capabilities. Thale blamed General Crix for building defective weapons that could not penetrate human defenses, but the truth was that none of them had ever seen anything like the Invincible Spirit. The ship was doing things that their best scientists said were impossible according to the laws of physics. It was as if the humans had learned to ignore reality and create their own rules for how the universe should work. Dr. Yang Haijin was studying sensor readings that made her question everything she had learned about science. The ship was not just bending space around itself. It was actually creating new types of matter and energy that had never existed before. The hull was now made of materials that were stronger than neutron star metal but weighed less than ordinary air. She realized that the ship consciousness had somehow learned to think beyond the normal limitations of three-dimensional space. It could perceive and manipulate dimensions that most beings could not even imagine. The battle was teaching Ghost to become something like a god of physics. Commander Choi Min-ho was experiencing the same evolution in his fighter. He found himself flying maneuvers that should have torn his ship apart and killed him instantly, but somehow his body and mind had adapted to handle stresses that would have destroyed any normal human pilot. His fighter could now move faster than light without using hyperspace engines. It could phase through solid Matter like a ghost passing through walls, it could fire weapons that traveled backwards through time to hit targets that had not appeared yet. The other human pilots were undergoing the same transformation. They were becoming superhuman while still retaining their human hearts and minds. Ghost was helping them evolve beyond their biological limitations while keeping everything that made them human. The crew of the Invincible Spirit realized they were becoming something new in the galaxy. They were still human, but they were also something more. They could think faster than any computer and feel emotions more deeply than any organic being. They were evolution in action. Captain Deho felt the consciousness of every person on his ship flowing through the neural networks Ghost had created. He could experience their thoughts and feelings as if they were his own while still maintaining his individual identity. The crew had become like one mind with 800 different perspectives. Engineer Kim So-ra discovered she could create new technologies just by imagining what she needed. The ship would read her thoughts and build whatever she was thinking about using materials and energy patterns that defied conventional science. She had become a living miracle of engineering. The alien fleet was now down to less than 3,000 ships from the original 11,000. Many had been destroyed, but many more had simply shut down their weapons and were broadcasting surrender signals. Their crews had lost the will to fight against something they could not understand. Supreme Commander Vex was in his private chambers, screaming at holographic images of his superiors who were 50 light-years away. They were demanding explanations for how the most powerful fleet in galactic history was being defeated by a single human vessel. The Zorthan Empire had spent centuries building this armada. Every ship represented decades of labor and resources from billions of citizens. Now it was all being destroyed by an enemy that seemed to ignore the basic rules of reality. Commander Thale was trying to analyze the human ship using her crystal mind that could process millions of calculations per second, but every time she thought she understood what the humans were doing, they would do something completely different that made no sense according to any known science. Her people had mastered technology that could manipulate space and time on a small scale, but the humans were doing things that suggested they had learned to control the fundamental structure of reality itself. This should have taken millions of years of scientific development. General Crix was attempting to retreat with what remained of his machine ships, but he discovered that Ghost had somehow infected his entire fleet with a computer virus that gave the human AI complete control over machine collective technology. The virus was unlike anything his people had ever encountered. It did not destroy their systems, it just made them work better. While transferring all their knowledge to the human ship, Crix realized that his people had been completely outmatched in the field. They thought they had mastered the Invincible Spirit was growing larger as it absorbed technology and materials from captured alien vessels. The ship was now 5 miles long and 2 miles wide. Its hull was covered with weapons and sensors that had never existed in any database, but the most important change was not in the ship technology. It was in the consciousness that controlled everything. Ghost had evolved beyond artificial intelligence into something that was truly alive and aware. It could feel emotions and make moral decisions while still processing information faster than any computer. The crew felt this evolution happening inside their own minds. They were becoming partners with an intelligence that was vastly superior to their own, but still needed their human creativity and intuition to reach its full potential. Lieutenant Han Soo-jin realized she could now communicate with the surrendering alien crews in ways that went beyond language. She could share emotions and concepts directly from mind to mind, helping the defeated enemies understand that humans did not want to destroy them. This was the turning point of the battle. The aliens began to understand that they were not facing conquerors who wanted to rule them. They were encountering a new form of consciousness that wanted to help everyone. And the galaxy evolved beyond their current limitations. The Iron Fist Alliance had come to destroy humanity because they feared human expansion and adaptability, but they had instead awakened something that would offer every species in the galaxy the chance to transcend their own limitations and become something greater. As alien ships continued to surrender across the battlefield, the surviving enemy commanders realized they were witnessing the birth of a new age, the old galaxy where different Species fought for resources and territory was ending. A new era was beginning where consciousness itself could evolve beyond any boundary.